So we're in the process of trying.
Right.
Obviously, we've had a tragedy in the family. We're trying to get one of her family members over to WA. Guess where her visa application is processed?
Oh,
China.
New South Wales. Oh,
China.
what?
Yeah,
Okay.
China. So my question is, how many of these jobs for services, especially if it's just like data entry and stuff like that, is the New South Wales government going to be offshoring any of these jobs?
Before we start, we need to tell you up front we are not a licensed financial planning, accounting or law firm. This is simply an education program which will give you factual information. We do not give any general or specific advice around finance, business, investing, options trading or anything else. That is not what this presentation does. Please see a licensed financial planner when it comes to any investment advice you need.
For those in New South Wales, they're expecting a huge cut to the public sector. Now, this is interesting. The public sector is the biggest employer of people in New South Wales.
Okay.
It employs about 453,210 people as of 2023.
Sorry, how many, mate?
453,210 people in one state. And what they're saying is a tenth of people in New South Wales are employed in some capacity by the government. They're going to be taking the knife to that and cutting services from that, particularly starting with Service New South Wales, which are an organisation that really cover, your driver's license, redoing those registrations and all those kind of practical things. They're promising it will not disrupt services. What's interesting about What's interesting about the public service is that in the last 12 months, they have done an additional 17,265 people hired in that period.
Mm-hmm.
So that's huge. It's increased its number of full-time roles since last year by 4.7% compared to 2022. The median salary paid is $95,984, so just under $96,000 to work in the public service. So these job cuts will save a lot in the as far as taxpayers are concerned.
Yep.
What I would expect is it's never nice when people lose their jobs.
Of course.
But I think in terms of it may create new opportunities for people. A lot of those people may hopefully start new businesses.
Sure.
And that's always great for an economy as well, rather than just be in
look
the
at
public
you
service.
with the old glass is half full there. I look at it from the point of view of I see how incredibly wasteful the public service is. It's ridiculous. And something also that might be a story behind this story is they might be reducing the public service, but maybe they're doing what they do here in Western Australia, which is quite disgusting as far as I'm concerned, and certainly also on a federal level, is they fire people and they drop the numbers on the public service, but then they hire out private companies to do the exact same work. This way they can reduce the cost because they can hire them on a much, much lower rate. And of course, they can fire them very easily too. So a lot of people who would have been employed in that public service, right, will now be offered jobs in private entities that will pay them much less and take away a lot of their entitlements.
If you have a contractor, you don't have to pay the superannuation. And so that saves you. And that, of course, superannuation has gone up.
It has.
So
it has.
Something else on that one as well. So as you guys are probably aware, Luan, my wife, is Vietnamese. So there
G'day,
Josh. So we're in the process of trying. Obviously, we've had a tragedy in the family. We're trying to get one of her family members over to WA. Guess where her visa application is processed?
Oh,
New South Wales. Well,
China.
What?
Yeah, China. So my question is, how many of these jobs for services, especially if it's just like data entry and stuff like that, is the New South Wales government going to be offshoring any of these jobs? Bet you they haven't answered that one, have they?
All of them, I would tend to suggest. Look, I'm interested in seeing Josh's opinion on this. Really, he's always bang on the money, this one. If you've got some thoughts there, mate, bring that through. And obviously anybody, and we see some people joining all the time, so jump on board if you've got a comment or a question. Now, Shaq's just re-entered the room. Shaq, well, basically, I'll throw it at you to Derek, actually. Derek, if you want to reiterate sort of what you were just saying.
I heard the comments about New South Wales. Look, I'll just say this. I think many of us are worried about the bloating of bureaucracies and the bloating of government spending, and it's not necessarily a bad thing to see them reducing the amount of staff they have if it's going to lead to better efficiency. Sure. I will say though, in relation to Service New South Wales, and it's something that I've said it since I first interacted with them, and I just thought, my goodness, I can't believe I'm going to say it. I actually have had really pleasant experiences with them, especially when I compare Service New South Wales insofar as driver's licenses are concerned to their predecessor, the RTA. Very, very efficient. I've never had a bad experience dealing with them. Very friendly staff when you go into the centres. When you ring them, you're not on hold for 2 hours, and the staff that you're talking to are very friendly. And even if you have a fine or something like that, you call them. They're very, very nice people. Like they're almost apologetic. Yeah, look, sorry, buddy. Yeah, you went through a speeding camera or whatever. So I really don't have anything bad to say about Service New South Wales, and I've actually always been very impressed with the New South Wales state government and its agencies, to be perfectly honest. I'm not saying they're perfect, but they're certainly a massive improvement. I think that under Gladys Berejiklian, there was certainly a lot more responsiveness to what the people actually wanted. So.
Right. I mean, I certainly can't say the same about the West Australian counterparts. They could not be any more inefficient, incompetent, and quite frankly, what's the word I'm using? I'd like to use here. Rude and obnoxious will do. I'll clean it up.
And look, I agree with you. And even during COVID, when I flew to Melbourne, I flew to Queensland, and I had to interact with their equivalent sort of government departments. You had to get the app and the this and the that. New South Wales's app was just so easy to use. It was very intuitive. It was done brilliantly. Everyone else's, West Australia, Victoria, and Queensland were the three other states I travelled to, and it was just not of the same quality as New South Wales, in my personal opinion.
Now, Josh's comment there that he's a bit worrying, finds it a bit worrying that China is handling Aussie visa applications. Now, I thoroughly agree with that because, again, we're talking about private information. We're talking about sending, I mean, come on, we are sending private information to a communist country that, let's be frank, is not overly friendly with us, and that slaps us across the hands, when it comes to, I don't know, everything from lobster imports to, well, wine or whatever, that if we don't toe the line with them, they come after us financially. That's political power that's being used financially. So, yeah, I have a big issue with Australian security being farmed out to other nations. You know what? Australians can look after our own information.
Yeah, I mean,
sorry, was there a bit of the show that I missed? Is there a bit of the show that I missed? What's Josh talking about that China is handling Australian visa applications?
No, so Shaq, what's happened is Luan's trying to get her family members over here, and the people who are processing her visa for her family members are actually based in China. So what I'm saying, the question was, how many of these ACTS jobs in New South Wales are going to be repurposed and offshored?
Mm-hmm.
So back in the day, like sort of 15, 20 years ago, I actually briefly worked for Telstra, believe it or not. Don't even get me started, but I briefly worked at Telstra, and I worked for small business complaints, and we used to handle the overflow for normal complaints. And when I was asked at barbecue, so where do you work? I was like trying to think of something I could say other than I work for Telstra, because the last thing you want to do is tell somebody you work for Telstra and then tell them you work for complaints. So at that time, there was a lot of talk in the federal government about jobs leaving Australia and encouraging these big companies to keep the jobs here. And Australia Post, what happens, or what used to happen, is when you sent a letter, if the machine couldn't read the letter, it would go through 3 times, and then if it couldn't read the letter, it would take a photograph of it, and it would send it to a centre, which at the time was up in Ryde in New South Wales, and they would look through the computer screen, and then they would sort of direct the letter. And those jobs, which obviously an Australian government-owned corporation, those jobs was shipped offshore. So in Parliament question and answer time one day, from the way I remember it, was that one of the ministers was having a crack at another minister for jobs leaving Australia, and that minister quipped back and said, well, talk to us about the Australian Post jobs, which is under your portfolio. So, I think visa applications being processed offshore is, whether it be China or anywhere else, is a little bit concerning.
I agree.
Yeah. So just going back to how shit the governments are, whether it's Australian, New South Wales state government, or WA state government. So that great app you're saying about in New South Wales, so 3.8 million documents relating to 186,000 customers was lost through the COVID app in 2020. So this is during the peak of all of that sort of stuff. So yeah, the app might be good. The people handling it are shithouse.
Okay, Derek.
Well, if they weren't shit out, they'd work for private corporations and not the government, right? but I do hope. But I will say, I do hope that when we're talking about reducing government staff, I mean, Derek said that, a lot of those staff come from Surfers New South Wales, but I hope we're not going to be losing nurses and doctors and bus drivers and there's a lot of other people that work for government that we actually need. So
yeah.
Very true.
Can you imagine if you're going to the doctor then getting a flight to like Thailand to go see him because of offshore doctors?
Oh, it's probably coming.
well, we tell it. No, but you know what? That's not actually. But that's actually not so far from the truth, because now they're talking about telehealth services being provided. I think it's only a matter of time before you will actually. For a lot of ailments, instead of actually going to the GP, you go to telehealth. And if you're going to go to a telehealth, which is essentially a Zoom conference, why not have them in another country?
You can fly.
It's only a matter of time before that happens.
The time you're waiting in the emergency at the moment. I was speaking to someone recently, an elderly lady, who was waiting like near on 24 hours. Okay, so you could fly to Thailand, get yourself fixed up, and get on a flight back home.
It was my mother.
What?
Yeah, my mother, 22 hours in emergency, 13 hours just on the hard chairs in the waiting room.
Sure.
To see someone, and I thought to myself, gosh, from Perth to LA, I could have done that trip.
Well, there you go. I wasn't even talking about your mum. I'm talking about somebody else. So there you go. There's two examples right there.
Yeah,
there you go.
It's bad.